It's 3 days after high school graduation. Now, I'm a Jewish kid that went to Catholic school. And so that in itself was an experience. But I was given a present for graduating high school in preparation to go to the academy by my father. He was a car salesman. So they got me a used car, and I was going to go to a friend's home. He had a lake house with his family in Lake Opatcon, New Jersey. And that was about 30 miles north of where I lived. So early in the morning, I kissed my mom and dad goodbye, said I'll be home later tonight, and I left. Got on in the car, drove to pick up my friend Lou, and then we went back onto the highway. And as I was going on the highway, I noticed I was feeling very strange. And I looked down and I looked through my hands. Well, that was the last thing I remember because the police report said I went almost 30 miles and I have no recollection. The next thing I know, I was going down a tunnel. Looks like a car speeding and everything's whizzing by you. And I come to the other side and I meet my grandfather, who I'm named for. Now, Jewish people are named for their grandparents or some relative that's passed away. So he was already gone 2 years before I was born. And I recognized him when I got to the other side when he said, "You don't belong here. You haven't fulfilled your purpose and missions in life. But before you return, I have someone for you to meet." And he took me into a room and he introduced me to three beings. Two were facing me and one was facing me, and he was talking to the other two. And he had curly, wavy hair. And he turned towards me and I said, "Are you the being everybody calls Jesus?" And he said, "I'm called by many names, but because of your heritage, being Jewish, I will call you the Little Prince of Peace, and you can call me Big Brother. If you need me, simply call out for me. But meanwhile, I have to send you back now. You can't stay here. You have to fulfill your purpose and missions in life." And I went, shoot. And just as I did that, I got pulled back into my earthly body. Now, I have to tell you, in the meantime, my mom and dad were called by the state highway patrol. And they were told that I was in a bad accident. And that would they come and identify my body. But my mom looked at my dad and said, "I know he's going to be okay." My mom was born on Halloween, and she was intuitive and had the gifts and abilities to know everything about me. I could never hide anything. So she said, "Come on, Herman," that was my dad's name, "and we'll go out and we'll go find him." So they went to the hospital, and my dad said, "Should we park by the emergency room and go in that way?" And she said, "No, I have a feeling we should go around the back door." And so they did. They drove around the back where the morgue was. And they opened the morgue door, and the hallway was kind of dark. And as they walked down the hallway, they saw a man wearing scrubs like what I'm wearing now. And they went to go see what he was pushing or to ask a question. As they got closer, they saw that he was pushing a gurney with a body on it, but it was covered up. And as they got really close, the man vanished. He just disappeared. And there was a body sitting on a metal gurney. And so they pull back the sheets, and there I am. I sit up. "Mom, Dad, I met God. I met Grandpa." And they said, "Son, you had an accident. Come with us." I went, "Okay." And I went to sit up and get off the table, and I realized my head was hurting really bad. So Mom and Dad grabbed my arms, one on each side, and they walked me down the hallway and out the double doors of the morgue and put me in the back of my dad's car. So that began my journey of explaining exactly what happened. Now, fast forward. My mom, 9 months later, I'd asked her, "How come we never got a bill from the emergency room?" And she said, "That's because they didn't put you in the emergency room. They put you in the morgue." Second, she told me the story about how there was a man pushing my body down the morgue hallway and into the morgue refrigeration unit, but they never knew what happened to the guy. All right, fast forward even more now. It is 30 years into the future. I'm already a doctor. I've gone to a teaching about spirituality and healing, and I come back with a flyer. Just a simple little flyer. And I show my mom. And my mom gasps and says, "Oh my goodness, that's the man." I said, "The man for what?" "That was the man that was pushing your body down the hallway and into the morgue door to the refrigeration unit." I said, "Mom, that man died 2 months after I was born." And then it dawned on me. You see, when I started, I told you the story that there were three beings in the room, correct? One was Jesus. The one behind him was Michael the Archangel. And the one to his right, I didn't know who he was. And I began to realize that that being who didn't tell me who he was said, "You will figure out who I am sometime in the future." And I recognized him as the same person that my mom recognized that was pushing me down the hallway. He said you would learn a simple technique to heal yourself and share that with other people. And that was the last thing I remembered. All right. I'm now in practice some years. I've been in, I think, 10 years. And I now begin to have a second near-death experience. What was the difference between the two? One, I was driving and there was some kind of accident. Second one, I was not feeling very good. Ended up flying one day. I was a medical examiner and I flew between locations. And I was practicing for a long-range flight from San Diego up to Sacramento in the wintertime. And I always wanted to practice with my flight instructor to be better prepared for icy, cold, high-altitude weather. So I was flying in Southern California. The highest altitude was Lake Arrowhead. So we went flying there. And I came off the runway. I guess I felt tired. And we went up to about 12,000 feet, and I got really dizzy, lightheaded. And I slumped over the steering wheel, which we call the yoke in an airplane. And I nearly blacked out. My flight instructor, thank goodness she was with me, pushed the yoke down. We went about 4,000 feet below that where I was, and my oxygen content in my blood increased. And I sort of woke up. She didn't want to take any chances, so she flew me home to Long Beach, where I then got in a car and drove over to the medical examiner's office because as a pilot, flight exams have to be done annually. I was due for one anyway. So I went to see my flight examiner, and he said, "You're bleeding internally. We don't know where it's coming from, so I'm going to refer you to the Keck Institute at USC Medical Center in Los Angeles." And for those that are watching and have any knowledge of soap operas, there is a show called General Hospital. And General Hospital uses the gates and the entrance to LA County Memorial Hospital as part of its show of General Hospital. But the Keck Institute's back in there. So they sent me to doctors there who did some x-rays and said, "We don't like what we see or what we found." They didn't give me a good prognosis. They didn't give me a good diagnosis. And they told me I'd have to take a particular therapy, which, as a chiropractor and a medical examiner, it was like, no way. I'm sorry. I don't accept your diagnosis or your prognosis. I know that there's other therapies, and I'm going to go to Mexico, and I'm either going to live or die trying, but I'm going to do it on my account, my way, not your way. Your way is a sure way that I'm going to be off planet very soon. So I did. I went to see the Gerson Institute. I went to Hulda Clark. And 3 months later, I come back for a re-exam with the same two doctors at the Keck Institute in LA. They said, "Oh, we must have made a mistake. We can't find anything wrong with you." I said, "You do realize you're talking to a medical examiner, right? I go to court for a living?" And the doctor stopped talking. And suddenly, my file disappeared. One doctor retired, the other doctor died, and the third doctor insisted that nobody could heal from what I was diagnosed with unless I went through their therapy. And he aggravated me so much I wanted to punch him. However, he was so tall, 7'1", largest doctor I had ever worked with. I just had to leave. First of all, if I tried to punch him, I would hurt myself because I couldn't get past his belly button. Second, he just didn't believe in anything alternative. He didn't believe anybody got cured unless it was a medical doctor doing it. And he believed that MD stood for medical doctor, major deity, but not God. And so I walked out, had to do a prayer for him, and never went back. So those were the two combinations of what occurred. The main part of the second near death was that when they had to do a review for me before they found what they found, they put me on a table to do an upper and lower GI and put me out. In other words, they anesthetized me. And while I was under anesthesia, I came out of my body. Only this time I didn't go all the way back to heaven. I literally was floating above my body in what they call a veridical near-death experience. And there, all of a sudden, next to me was an angel. And I said, "Can I go home now? My body's a mess." And they said, "Nope, you still haven't fulfilled your purpose and missions in life. You have to go back." I said, "Okay, what's my mission and purpose in life?" And that's when they reminded me that I would learn a simple technique to heal myself and share that with other people. And I said, "What's the technique called?" They said, "You'll figure it out, but it's called Einstellen. Einstellen. Means tuning into the source and asking for help and healing." So when I woke up from the anesthesia, I came and saw my mom and dad and said exactly what had transpired, how I met the angel, how they said I had to fulfill my purpose and missions in life, and this is what it was. So I created a nonprofit group, and it was called the International Holistic Healing Circle and Society, and I began investigating every alternative I could, including every spiritual way I could heal, investigating every form of meditation and prayer, and you name it. And that's how the book came about, There Are No Lines in Heaven. One of the people I was working with, a Mr. Brown, at the Gerson Institute in Mexico, he wanted to have me work with him. And I said, "You're a devout Christian. You only have Christian doctors. Why do you want to work with me?" He said, "Well, I'm a devout Christian and I work with Jesus. I believe in Jesus. Jesus is my Lord. And I understand from the Gerson Institute that you've actually met Jesus." I said, "Yes." But I said, "Remember, I'm Jewish. Yes, I went to Catholic school, but I'm Jewish. And Jesus is actually related to me. I'm part of the line of David. Aaron and Moses are my grandfather and my uncle, 792 times removed. Before they made a religion for Jesus, calling it Christianity, Jesus was Jewish." He said, "But you met Jesus, and I really want to." And so he hired me. And that's how we began to work together. And one thing led to another. And next thing, I was talking to people about spiritual prayer, how to do Einstellen, pushing faint matter, how to remove emotions that didn't serve them, and all of the things from verbal frequencies, you name it. I was teaching people what to do to help them to have a higher probability and statistics of survival, help in healing, and actually create miracles for themselves. And this began my new path in life, helping other people.
What I'm really surprised by is you're saying a very simple technique to healing. And for anybody that has ever had, a disease or trauma or anything, it doesn't seem very simple to get rid of it, to get rid of our emotions, to ease our anxiety, not to mention if we have a medical condition. It seems like, there's a whole process and years and a lot of pain to go through, not to mention a lot of medicine. So could you share more about this simple way to heal, and what kind of ailments can we heal with this method?
All right, first of all, from the spiritual perspective, 95% of our healing is spiritual, not physical. Only 5% is physical. Second, people have to remember that God is the greatest physician and there is no incurable, only people who cannot yet believe. Paracelsus was a philosopher, a reverend, a minister, a physician in the 17 and 1800s, and he even said this way back when. People just must have faith in God, trust in a being higher than ourselves to connect us to God, and then believe in our own divinity and the ability to heal. So 70% of the people out there can't believe. No way. They're into technology. They're into medicine. As far as they're concerned, only doctors, NDEs can heal. Nobody else. So I can't help them. They're going to be the ones that go to the doctor and do everything the doctor says. The 30% who are open to the spiritual perspective, not the religious perspective, because there's no religion in heaven, hence the name, there are no lines in heaven. Well, spirituality is where it counts. Those 30% are going to be the people who are going to seek me out and find out how to do this simple technique to heal themselves. Now, even of the 30% who's out there, everybody has a different path. So of that 30%, 2% will really receive major helps and healings and be involved with what I'm doing. And that equates to roughly 25 to 50 million people out there who really are serious about waking up and changing their bad habits and looking for answers. Now, this is a part that most people can't believe either. We're on a schooling planet. Well, what's a schooling planet? It's a place where your souls come to learn and get closer to God. We're on a planet that's college or university level, we'll call it. The highest level, the doctorate level of education spiritually. So what is this planet? This planet is the dichotomy between good and evil. This planet volunteered to be the schooling place where all the children of God would come at the highest level, the most courageous of children, come to this world to experience this good and evil. Because nowhere else in the universe and no other planet with other race of beings has this dichotomy between good and evil. So God put all the evil in the universe on this world. Their job is to destroy us. Our job, to master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome whatever's thrown at us. So there's many paths to get that way, but my path is the one that works for me. Why? Because they sent me back to learn this technique and share it with other people. Now, people are going to say, well, I was written off, or they won't do anything, or my state or my country won't let me see you or work with you because they still said I have to go through this therapy or that therapy. And that's true. That's why I left California. Number one, California will no longer allow a doctor of any kind to discuss God with their patients. So it's not a state I can talk to people with about God and help in healing. So I moved to Florida, where God is welcome here. So this is good. Second, in California, we'll use it as an example, or Washington, I couldn't see a client unless they were written off by the medical community or left for dead or been told there's nothing more that we can do with our standard of medicine, standard of care. So, what do I do again? I teach people about the power of prayer. I teach people this technique called Einstellen. And I teach this every 2 weeks on a Sunday afternoon, East Coast time, about 2 o'clock my time, which I think is about 8 o'clock your time in the Netherlands. And I do this for free. I also teach it in a personal way, one-on-one, along with prayer, pushing faint matter, which is dark negative energy, out of the body. Most important thing is people have to stop being afraid. So I teach them how to get rid of fear, overwhelm. I teach them how to forgive other people or forgive themselves. Why? Because the angels who come to talk to me tell me that humans are lousy at forgiving other people, hence the reason we keep having war, or even worse, they don't know how to forgive themselves. They make a mistake and then beat themselves up after they've made the mistake. So now they've made 2 mistakes and they're really worse off. Next, they grieve and don't know how to let go of grief. It's very simple to let go of grief or all these emotions that I talk about. Number 1, they have to let go of fear. Number 2, they have to let go of overwhelm. By the way, Sabrina, have you ever been overwhelmed by anything?
Oh goodness, how much time do you have?
Right, see? 99.9% of all humans have fear in them at some time of the day during their entire life. Well, this causes adrenal corticosteroids to be released and is a major triggering mechanism for high blood pressure and a slew of other disorders because they can't let go of fear. Well, I have simple things that can help people heal. Some verbal frequencies, fear is gone, overwhelm is gone, and they can begin to forgive. Guilt, grief, gotta go. We have to clear these things. And so we discussed these major issues to clear because once you control the way you react to emotions, you will stop all the hormones and chemicals being released and you can heal. Now, I've had priests, monks, nuns filled with parasites, filled with toxins, yet their spirituality and belief in God kept them alive and they weren't going to die anytime soon. I have other people, they're into technology, they're into science, but they're not into God. And these people are starving for spirituality. They no longer have faith in religion, and religion has become corrupt. Many of them forgot why they were made or created or what their purpose is. They forget why they're here. So I teach people their mission and purpose in life. Because if they're going to get a healing of any kind, they have to figure out what to do with themselves later. All right, 1/3 of my clients have 12 weeks to live. And when God and the angels come to me and say, touch not my child, I know I have to just help and support them over the next 12 weeks before they return to Heavenly Father, Mother, Creator, the big guy, the it. And I have to get them and their families prepared and make sure there's no fear in getting ready to cross over. 1/3 of my clientele, they're God's patients, they're my clients, but 1/3 of my clientele will live 4 times longer than their diagnosis and prognosis. Whatever their diagnosis was, and you notice I don't mention a diagnosis, but they were told they have 6 months to live, well, they'll live 2 years to 4 years before it's time to go home. Now, can you stop someone from going home? No. When it's time to go home, you go home. The day of your birth, you're given your return ticket. So just like you go get an airline ticket or a train ticket, you always have a return ticket. Very few people don't have a return ticket. So on the day of your birth, you also have your return ticket. Now, very few people want to know the date of the return. In my case, I know my return date, but I've only had 2 people who really wanted to know their return date of when they have to be prepared to go home. In most cases, both of these souls, it was 20 years in the future. And one was a couple who were going to go home together. So it was built in. You see, you get the choice of how you are born, and you get the choice of how you so-called die. But since there's really no death, there's only life, and it changes. What the angels call this place we are living in, they consider death. The place we return to, that we call heaven, they call that life. So they said, you guys have it all backwards. You stand on your head, you think you're telling the truth when you're not, and you have everything upside down and backwards. So people have to learn the truth. Another thing, because we have the dichotomy of good and evil in this world, most people don't realize that there are many other worlds with many other beings on it. And we are the show like no one else. In some of my earlier interviews, I've actually said the angels call this place the zoo of the universe. Why? There's more species on this world than anywhere in our galaxy, universe, or super universe. And so 52 races of beings, we call them aliens, come to this world to either mess with us or help with us. Of that, 3 races of beings actually go out of their way working for evil, the dark side, negativity, to screw with us, to control and manipulate us so they can feed off of our fear, worry, and everything else, including war. 2 races of beings actually come to help us and work with us to help us so that we can accomplish our mission and purpose in life to grow, evolve, and become who we are, true children of God. You see, one thing about our souls, we have the ability to raise up our consciousness and grow and become closer to the Creator. Many of the beings that come to visit us from alien worlds, they can't do that. They're fixed. They live much longer lives. They don't come back as often, and they don't experience the dichotomy of good and evil. So one day when humanity, and it's coming close to that time, learns to master its reality, then we too will no longer have the dichotomy between good and evil on this world, and we will travel to other worlds to experience the dichotomy of good and evil. In the meantime, Sabrina, what is it we're here for? We're here to master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome, no matter the circumstances. Well, that brings up the subject. Why do people have a near-death experience? And that is a reminder. You actually volunteer to jump into a body to have a series of experiences which will help wake you up and remind you so you can be a teacher and share this information with other people who are seeking the truth. Now, my own sister can't wake up. It's not part of her human design. She couldn't wake up if she tried. When I tried to show her how to do Einstein, she freaked out when it began to feel something in her hands and feet. She ran out of the house, drove away, and we never heard from her for 3 weeks. So she's part of that 70% who can't wake up. They're not ready. They're fearful. They only have this reality. My brother's a psychologist. As far as he's concerned, only this reality exists. He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe in anything other than his psychology. Until one day, one of his own professors and people he looked up to said, yes, near-death experiences are real. It's the first time he ever really wanted to talk to me about that. My other brother was proud that I was back working again, helping people heal. He said, I don't care how you do it, just do it. I'm glad that you're back to work. Because all my brothers and my sister thought I was a goner. They thought I was written off by the medical community, and they never experienced anything that led them to believe that I would ever return to work being a useful person. Now I am. So people must know about the truth of this reality, who we are, why we're here, their mission and purpose in life. You have a mission and purpose, Sabrina. Even in the Netherlands, your job, help people wake up, remind them. If you'll remind the audience, the name of the show is, and you'll tell them.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And the biggest thing is people cannot believe. If you want to have a miracle, going back to what we were talking about earlier, I like to think of them as not as miracles, but astonishments, because they become commonplace, natural, as we're supposed to be. And those are the people that seek help and healing. Is this the only path to help and healing? No. Is this the only path to waking up? No. It's just my path, because this is what I was sent back to Earth for. So hopefully that answers some of the questions that you've had so that we can kind of tie it all together.
Oh, it sure does. But you've mentioned earlier that you worked with a couple and they were planning, or they actually ended up leaving together this planet, so dying together. And you also said we plan when we die. We know that. We get to choose it. Do we get to choose that before we're born, or do we have any kind of influence on it whilst we're here?
All right. Number one, you're shown, hopefully not thrown, but shown 3 options to come into a life. One of those options may have a near-death experience. Anybody out there that's interested, time to go home and recycle, when they tell you it's time to come back, ask for a near-death experience so that you can experience what we're talking about. All right, you do have options of how you're going to go home. Even in your going home, you'll be given 3 opportunities within your window to go home. So, door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3. My father had an option, for instance, I'll give an example, where he chose door number 1. He wanted to go home earlier because he was losing his mental capacity to think properly. And as a technically advanced brain, an engineer and a pilot, Dad did not like the fact that he couldn't put words together or think properly. So he took door number 1. My mom, on the other hand, she took door number 3. And she waited to the very last moment to go home, till there was no other options except time to go now, gotta leave. Now, other things that they need for you to understand. You're not here to hate. You're not here to grieve. You're not here to suffer. You are here to struggle as part of mastering this reality, enduring, persevering, and overcoming. As a result, if you have an option, don't choose suicide. Suicide will bring you back and make you do this all over again. Now, there are people, 2% of the suicides in the world, that choose suicide as an option from the other side before they come here. Those are people who are going to be killed in a war, die of a terrible disease, or take their own life, which will then give a gift to another person to help save another person or help another person spiritually grow. But 98% of the people don't have that option, so don't commit suicide. Another thing, hate, not a good option. Don't hate anybody or anything. That's why we got wars. Palestinians and Israelis. If they only knew, Palestinians are going to come back as Jewish Israelis, and Israelis are going to come back as Palestinians. Russians are going to come back as Ukrainians. Ukrainians are going to come back as Russians. And that a lot of them. Never hate anybody, because that's also going to make you come back and do the thing you least want to do. You must choose a path that somehow deals with help and healing and love, and the mixture of 2. Your way of precipitating love and helping and healing is to show stories about other people, which can be used as motivational tools to help anybody watching these films. Am I correct?
That's yeah, I like to think so, yeah.
Yes. So, not all near-deathers come back with healing gifts. I have this intuitive ability. I can read a person, see their auric field, and tell them what they need to fix before it's time to go home. Teach them how to do pushing faint matter and Einstein, so God can be the greatest physician. But I also have the ability to pull negative energy out of them to help them on their path if they're stuck. I tell them where their blockages are. I use this example. I was called in for a consultation by a fellow doctor who was really good at diagnostic workups. He was really online and excellent. 99%, he was spot on. But this particular person, actually had two of them like this, he could not figure out what was wrong with this lady and then the subsequent second woman until I got there. I did my prayer, cleared out the negative energy around this person, and then I saw the auric field. And in the auric field of this woman, I saw that she had been abused by 3 people. I said, there are 3 people, they're men. One caused you more harm than the other 2. What was it? She said, I was forced to take chemotherapy when I didn't want to, or they would take away my ability to keep my medical insurance. Now, that's actually against the law, but she didn't know that. She didn't argue with them. And so she took the chemo, and she felt anger, rage, and resentment towards these doctors. Well, the doctor who had asked me to come in for this consult said, you never told me this. She said it was 7 years ago. I forgot about it. I buried it. So I asked her, do you want me to pull out this negative energy from you? Or do you want the doctor who asked me to come in and meet you? And she said, I'll have the other doctor do it. And I said, okay. And that was the end of our consult. From that point forward, she began to heal and made miraculous astonishments in the rapidity of how rapid she would heal and feel better. It's just that simple. You asked me earlier about all the people, it's all these things, and you got to go through this medicine, and you got to go do this, and you got to do that, and it's going to take a long time. No, it can happen instantaneously. It's a matter of having faith in the Creator, who and what you call the Creator, trust in a being who's greater to you to connect you to your higher self and what we call God, and then belief in your own ability to heal. So, I have a question for you, Sabrina. Do you feel that you could have enough faith in God, trust in a being higher than yourself to connect you to God, and believe in yourself so you could heal and then help other people too?
So much more than I would in trusting what, somebody that sees me for 5 minutes would tell me to do.
So basically what I do is become a teacher. I teach other doctors, I teach their patients, and I teach people who, quote, are called healers. In other words, they have a healing gift or ability, and they need to improve themselves and become closer to the Creator. So I'd say about 2/3 of the people are not actually patients of other doctors. They're actually, quote, healers themselves, or beginning to know they have healing gifts and abilities, but they don't know what to do to help themselves get closer to the source and actually raise up their consciousness. So I teach this. And coming next year, I will be teaching that online on a 2-day course over a weekend, once a month. So people will either come and visit me in person, or they will come and visit me online, which reminds me, 2/3 of my clients are from 17 or 18 different countries. So they don't visit me in person. They Zoom with me, and we do everything through Zoom, including I can read their auric field all the way on the other side of the ocean or wherever they're calling me from, and actually tell them what's going on. The 1/3 lives somewhere locally, anywhere from North Carolina to Texas, some even California or Washington State, and ask either to come into the office or they ask me to come and visit them in their particular state, and they want me to work with them for a whole week. It's like what I used to do with the Gerson Institute. I used to come back and work with people at their home and actually find out what's wrong with their home, because many times their home is the major source of problems. Electromagnetic frequency issues, mold, mildew, you name it. Problems with the home itself, all sorts of, their house lives under high tension wires, whatever. So there's many things that I have to evaluate. Can I do it for everybody? No, but sometimes they can take me on a tour when they can't send me to wherever they live. Now, how do I do this? I ask for a donation. I still have to live, but I became a spiritual church of one, a theocentric eleemosynary, a 508c1a, a charity of one between me and God. And so I had to do this through religious or spiritual means. I'm part of the Commission on Religious and Spiritual Counseling and Healing. It's part of the Romano-Byzantine Orthodox Synod. So that's how I'm covered. I just remember the state of California said to me, "You died. You have to go sit your boards again." I said, "I'm not sitting my boards. I'm not paying $2 to $3 grand to go sit my exams again. I know what I know." And at first I was upset. And then I realized instead of $2,000 a month of insurance, it went down to $26 a month for insurance with the religious counseling. So I don't touch people that way anymore. I touch people through spirit. I can touch people physically, but without my hands, unless I do something called laying on of the hands, which I very rarely do. And if I do, it's only into a very limited space. So if they need a chiropractor, in our office, we have a husband and wife team. They take care of the chiropractic. You need an acupuncturist, oriental medicine. My housemate and spiritual sister, Dr. Victoria Miller, she does that. You need massage therapy? Her 2 sons take care of it. When I'm traveling, I travel with different kinds of equipment to help people see and experience frequency medicine. Whatever it is, we can do it remotely, one-on-one, or one-on-one physically. And the biggest thing is most near-death experience people come back with some kind of gift, but very few people actually utilize them. Most people tell a story. Now, I tell my story in the book, There Are No Lines in Heaven, but I am not here just to tell a story, a feel-good thing. I'm actually here to help people heal themselves, where they can work with God, the greatest physician. God's the greatest physician, and there is no incurable. So I don't do the healing. I don't even claim to do that. It's between them and God. Because what comes through me is not my power. That is the gift that comes through me. I'm not the gift. I'm just a little child of God, doing what God wants me to do to fulfill my purpose and missions in life. So, there's a lot out there that's a little bit different. I actually enjoy the word being called weird, because the third definition in the thesaurus or dictionary for weird means spiritually unique and different. And I have known I'm unique and different since I'm 5 years old. Do I like being unique and different? You betcha. For me, this is fun. When I help somebody realize who they are, and I help them connect to the source, God, whoever they call that, I get such a high, such a rush off of it that it's unbelievable. Makes me feel fantastic. And it's the closest thing to being with the angels, which smell like the most gorgeous fragrance you can ever imagine, and feel the greatest rush, the tingling in your hands and feet and your third eye. You get power. Like, have you noticed that my energy's higher actually now than it was when we began?
Yeah.
It's because I'm high. I'm filled with the Holy Spirit. So I wish everybody out there who's learning about this story that my story is not just a story. It's to help people heal who and with whoever you call God. And that's the most important thing. We are all children of God. We are all equal. And it doesn't matter what religious faith you are. Just believe in God. They really exist on the other side. It is not an illusion. This is the illusion. This is the holographic universe. The other side is our real home, where we are really children of God. And you must remember, you volunteered to come here. So if you're having a bad day, you're not here to suffer. You are here to struggle, like a butterfly pushing itself out of its cocoon. If you cut that butterfly out, It will die, so let it alone. You are here to struggle enough to bring you closer to God, to have faith in the Creator, trust in a being higher, stronger, and more powerful than us to reconnect us to the source, and then believe in our own divinity and the ability to heal. Hopefully, I've covered all the topics that you wanted me to cover today.
You have, except you've mentioned your work, and for anybody that wants to get in touch with you or find you, where can they find you and how can they connect with you?
Go to https // therearenolinsinheaven.com. If you want to buy the book, go read it, either ebook version or paperback. Go to Amazon, and you can buy it in ebook version, which will instantly download on Kindle. With the new Kindles, they'll actually read the book to you for those people who have vision disturbances. Or I made the book 411 pages of large print, size 18 font. So you can read it. If you're over 40 years old, you can read it without glasses. And so you can enjoy reading it, make notes. Some people want me to sign that book. That's fine. And when I travel around and do the International Association of Near-Death Studies, usually a lot of people will meet me at those events, and I will sign those books for them. And then I will teach them how to do the things that I talk about. There are many paths towards the Creator, towards God. There are many ways to heal. And I discuss 57 of them in the book. But of course, when I work with someone personally, I work with my favorite 5. And those are the things that I do. Those are the things I teach. And I help people through the Creator. And by going to the website, you can also get my phone number. I have everybody takes my phone number. Area code 760-917-2625. Yes, I actually give out my phone number. And people can text me or WhatsApp with me, find me, and be able to connect. God bless to everybody. Thank you so much for today's opportunity to share the story and of how people can learn to heal themselves by reconnecting to the source of all there is.